Day 2. Got the 2018 Silverado up on the dyno still. Gonna go ahead on and finish up the wide open throttle pulls. As you guys see, I haven't changed anything. This is still from last night. So 500.2 horsepower, 435.9 foot-pounds of torque. Again, this is gonna be wrong. I think the truck spun a little bit, and also we did a third gear pull. Typically a supercharged truck of this era would actually basically match. So it should be like 500 horsepower, 500 foot-pounds of torque. So just ignore this number, but this number is going to be accurate. Only thing I've changed is I have tweaked injection timing just a little bit, but we're going to go ahead on and warm the truck up, and then I'll do another pull just with just the injection timing change. It should be basically the same power, and then we'll start putting some ignition timing in here and tweaking wide open throttle air fuel. We'll go through the actual process of making the most power we can. So let's hop in the truck now. All right, we'll go ahead on and do a cold start. It's not terribly cold inside the shop. It's probably 50, 55. I mean, I've got a jacket on. It's not crazy cold. So this truck started right up, idling good. So in some operating systems on these, they will go into a catalyst heating mode where it'll pull a shitload of timing out of it. So if you ever get one of those vehicles, they're more common like 16 and 17 model vehicles. Like you guys can see how much timing we've got at idle right now. So everything's happy right now, but on some 16 and 17 model vehicles, you'll have it to where when you cold start them, this will be like pull down like -4, and it'll almost sound like it's lean. It's not lean, and there's really nothing you can do about it. You could make an adjustment to the torque model to basically get rid of that issue, but you would actually be feeding the ECM false info. Anyways, gonna let the truck warm up and then we'll start ripping. So truck is warming up. Everything's looking pretty good so far. Ignition timing looks good. Closed loop fueling is pretty close. Haven't made really any adjustments on the bottom part of the MAF just yet. I will do that after. Do seem to have an open loop fault. So let me, I'll stop this data log. Not sure why I'd have an open loop fault yet. Okay, random misfire. Okay, well that's easy enough. I just need to adjust the misfire counter. I had not done that yet. So I think it's currently stock. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it is. All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to increase this. So if you guys want to actually tune on the misfire counter, you can actually just know that this is basically time. And that if you increase this, it will make the misfire counter less sensitive. So we could actually take this and we can highlight this and just multiply it times, we can do it times 2. And times 2 with this camshaft and everything should probably get it squared away. So we'll do it by 2 there. We will go into revolution mode. That should be fine, as 3,000 and below is basically disabled from the factory. Right here, do this whole thing and hit 2. And again, you can dial this in for your own combination. It does involve quite a bit of driving, so it's not usually something that I can do that well, just because I don't have the vehicle long enough. So if it's a vehicle that I was driving for 3 or 4 days and taking it home and doing cold starts and stuff, I could probably get the misfire counter dialed in, but this truck I don't plan on doing that. Plan on wide open throttle. Finish up wide open throttle today, and then I'll take it out on the street and make sure everything is clean, and then it'll be ready to go to its home. So anyways, I'm going to load this file in and should be ready to do some dyno pulls. All right guys, so truck is warmed up. Manifold air temp's kind of warm, but hopefully once I get to rolling, it'll come down some. So this pull is going to be 3,000 to 6,700, whereas we went to 6,400 last night. So I do expect it to pick up a little bit of power up top as long as everything's happy. But otherwise, we're on basically the same timing as last night. I did alter the IET to where it's not so sensitive on pulling timing for intake temp. Because on this operating system, the way I had it set up, it was pulling it, they started pulling 2 degrees at 86 degrees, which is probably okay, but I'd rather this truck be a little bit more consistent on timing with it being a 416. But all right, we're up to engine coolant temp. Let's do a rip. All right, so everything looked pretty good. Now, with us being in third gear, we're not loading the engine down as much, so it is going to appear to be a little bit leaner on here than what the truck's actually experiencing. I've done a bunch of heavy loads to get my fueling dialed in, like actual, like full-on vehicle simulation modes. Anyways, let's get out and see what kind of power this thing made. Should have done pretty good. All right, so that pull was 541.1 horsepower, 453.3 foot-pounds of torque. Now, again, we're in third gear, but I also don't have a ton of timing down low. With this being a high compression engine, you know, on that 6.5 pounds or so on pump gas, if you overtime one of these things down low, you'll get, not only will you have detonation, but you can also run into risks of low speed preignition, which is way more aggressive. We moved it from 3,000 to 6,700. Truck is still making peak power way up high. So let's go ahead on and pull up the trace. So there's a curve. So I mean, a really solid, good, flat torque curve. Does start to lay over. I mean, that's right around 6,500 or so, which is kind of what I expected with the small exhaust and the, you know, stock airbox and the small intake tube and the stock throttle body. So we've got a good baseline for today. So now let's see if we can improve on this anymore. We are actually over, you know, I figured 530, so we're at 540, but we'll see. Maybe it's got a little bit more left in it. All right, guys, so just loaded in a new tune. We're about to do the final dyno pull. I did add 2% more fuel. I'm trying to split the difference between, it was saying 3 or 4% lean during the last dyno pull, but on my last vehicle simulation, it was spot on. So I'm just gonna basically split the difference. That is one thing you guys will see, is depending on who's tuning your vehicle, or if you're the one tuning on a dyno, that vehicle load, I mean, it drastically changes wide open throttle fueling. So this thing, usually what I'll do is I'll do dyno pulls to where, as long as the air fuel ratio is in the ballpark, I'm not too concerned about it, because I primarily dial in air fuel ratio when I'm steady state in vehicle simulation mode. Anyways, made a slight change there. I also did tweak the intake temp advance as far as how much it pulls for intake temp. I desensitized it just a touch, because it seemed like it was getting too aggressive, and I'd like this truck to be a little bit more consistent on ignition timing. Just really for my own purposes. This truck would have ran, I'm not gonna say it would have been too much timing once the IAT advance was gone, but just more than I would like. Anyways, made that adjustment. So we should see like 14.5 degrees or so up top during this pull. I also did increase the dyno, the RPM curve that we're gonna run. We're gonna run 3,000 to 6,800 now instead of 6,700. Maybe it'll like that with a little bit added timing. So we'll see. I really wish I could run fourth gear in this truck. I think it would help tremendously. I'm not going to overtime this thing down low though. Again, this is a truck and it is high compression and it is pump gas. So there's gonna be so much left on the table if this customer ends up going on ethanol, especially because he's got the fuel system to do it. So other than the intake pump, it would need an intake pump swapped out. I think we're on the stock pump right now in the back, but we do have the LT4 high pressure pump with the LT4 injectors. Anyways, everything's looking good. Manifold air temp is kind of high right now, but oh well, let's just go on and do a pull anyways. Yeah, it's just gonna make a lot less power. Manifold air temp was just getting too hot. So it's actually been pretty consistent for the most part, so I'm not really sure why it's up to 136 now. This thing's been really good about staying like around 110 or so. So maybe it's time to check the heat exchanger fluid level. So again, this engine is new and they bled it and it seems to have been doing good, but I've ran it quite a bit today so far. So I'm gonna get out and check the heat exchanger fluid level and let the truck cool off. I want one more pull to where IAT advance isn't ripping so much timing out of the thing. It's pretty consistent though. It's like we've made 523 horsepower, 441 foot-pounds of torque, and that's with 2 degrees less timing. So not terrible, but anyways, I'm gonna get out and check that stuff and then we'll end up doing one more pull. All right guys, so back in the truck, was working on a couple remote tunes and hopefully this thing is cooled off enough. Not really, let me just see if I can drive it and get this manifold down. Just wanted to get back down like 107 to maybe 110. All right, good deal. It's coming down now. Just want to kind of have a good solid final number. I mean, I think the thing will make 550 now that I've seen kind of what the data is, but We'll see. All right, so I'm in third gear and 3,000 to 6,800. Let her rip. I mean, it felt good. Intake temp was low-ish. We got down to 112. See what kind of power it made. I mean, we're still down on boost compared to what it does on vehicle simulation. So just so you guys are aware, again, when we're down probably a full pound or so up top from what this thing does in vehicle simulation mode. I've seen 145, 146 KPA, and that was 138. All right, let's get out and check it. Well, I should have gave it another like 5 minutes to cool off. I said I wanted 550, 549. It is what it is. Again, guys, this torque, keep in mind, this is third gear dyno pulls, not fourth. So this is gonna be a little bit low. And also I don't have a ton of timing in this thing down low. So this truck being an 8-speed truck, I mean, you're only gonna be at that low RPM, you know, wide open throttle for just a split second, then you're gonna be up top. So I just tuned it this way. This is how I prefer. Again, if it was on E85, I would hammer this thing and this thing would make a shitload more power. Like honestly, this thing on E85, I don't know, I'd probably say 610, 620 up here and probably a similar torque. That's gonna do it for the silver truck. Let's go ahead on and get this white truck inside and see what we can get going on it. All right, so truck number 2 for the day is right behind me. Now this truck I've tuned a bunch. Some of you guys may recognize it from TikTok. I mean, this thing's been whored out more than Bella Porch on TikTok. Usually you'll see this truck doing burnouts. He's usually calling out some diesel guy. Usually has a trailer behind it. But anyways, we've got to go over and just double check the tune on this thing. They had to reroute how the bypass valve for the Whipple was plumbed, and that caused some idle quirks, and it's also caused the truck to make a shitload of boost, like more so than what it made before, which ran it out of fuel system. Like this thing's got LT4 injectors, LT4 pump. It's got, I think, a 535 intake. It may be twins. I don't remember what the intake was, but it's got a larger fuel lobe on the camshaft. So this thing's got a shitload of fuel, but we were still running out. So he had to put a larger pulley on there to get the boost down, and he's also been having to run like an E50 blend. So the truck should be safe. I may not have to make a single change on this thing, but I did have to make all the idle adjustments already, so it's possible that I have to make some wide open throttle stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead on and strap this down. I mean, it's actually like, it's 6:15 at night. So I just wanna go on and get this thing done though. So let me, I'll show you guys what all's done to it. All right, so as y'all can see, it's a good looking truck. It's all paint matched, it's got American Force wheels. Super dark window tint, but this thing is a Rods Pistons 6.2 stock block. It has a 2.9 liter Whipple on it. Williams 103 throttle body, 5-inch Weapon X intake. It's got long tubes. I mean, it's got, I think it's either 3.5 or 4-inch exhaust. It's got a custom grind camshaft, Mighty Mouse catch can, all that stuff. Like I said, it's already got a big fuel system. This is on E85. Normally the truck lives on full E85, but like I said, with the other pulley, he had to step down the ethanol content. So I don't even know what size pulley this is. Y'all may be able to see it. I can't tell it from its current position, but it's this pulley, yeah, we'll have to look at it in a little bit. But this pulley is larger than what was on here. I think the truck was making like 11 or 12 pounds before. And apparently once they rerouted the bypass valve, the truck made like 16 pounds, which it will instantly, I mean, it'll suck the rail dry and the truck will go too high on injector pulse width. So hopefully today we can get this thing on the dyno and actually do some clean pulls. I want to see no more than like 6.3 milliseconds of fuel. We're going to have to stretch out this high pressure pump quite a bit. So I don't know. I think I'm probably 24 and a half megapascal at wide open throttle right now. So we're probably going to have to crank it up even higher than that. But the truck should end up making, I think it made 814 wheel before. I don't expect it to make that much. Again, I mean, I feel like it's, I'm gonna say this truck's probably gonna make somewhere around 730 to 750 today, but we'll see what it does. All right, so let's go underneath it and check it out. Tires are good. I know front end's good. Again, I only look at the front end stuff usually just because a lot of times I'm tuning on swapped vehicles. And so normally I'm super stressed out about, you know, getting one done, take it out on the street and it, you know, having issues. I've actually lost a steering rack before on the street. I've lost a steering shaft before on the street. But anyways, got long tubes, got big 3-inch right here. So I think this is either 3.5 or 4-inch. Massive muffler on here. This thing sounds like, it almost sounds like a Duramax, honestly. I'm sure he'll love that. Big drive shaft though. I do believe this drive shaft has been upgraded if I remember right. Yeah, I believe it's like a PST drive shaft. I'm not sure. You can message him on TikTok. I'm sure he'd love to tell you about it. But anyways, drive shaft's gonna be good. Got traction bars on here. So let's go and get it down and get it on the dyno. All right guys, so we're up in the 17 Whipple Silverado on the dyno right now. We're gonna roll right into dyno pulls. So this truck has the Shane Hines StabiliTrak disabler. So we're gonna do that. So I'm just gonna watch injection pulse width right here, or injector pulse width. Obviously it's gonna be hard for you guys to see me. The windows are dark in this truck. So, but truck's up to temperature, manifold air temp looks good. Let's do a rip. So that was 4th gear. Again, this truck has an aftermarket drive shaft. This truck sees a lot of mile an hour a lot of the time. So we did spin a little bit. This thing is not making shit for a boost. So there's that. Or it's not making as much as I would have expected. How about that? So we're making 9.2 pounds. So it probably did not make a lot of power. We're only at 4.8 milliseconds. Which is fine, but yeah, normally this truck we like to see it right around 12 pounds or so. So, yep. All right, let's get out and see how much power it made. All right, well, numbers are disappointing. 604.2 horsepower, 505 foot-pounds of torque. Now, I do know it's spun, and you guys can even see, I'm not gonna pull up that whole trace, but you can see the big dip. So it did spin, but that's accurate. So I need to inspect for belt slip, and also it was still pulling. So I had the dyno stop it. That was 3,000 to 6,700, and it made peak power at 6,713. So it definitely wants more RPM too. I'm gonna get under the hood and check belt tension. All right, so you guys can see the pulley size now, 3.750. Just a 6 rib. Got the greenback HD. I don't feel any heat in this belt, and the tensioner actually looks like it's in a good position. We've got good belt wrap. That may just be all the boost this thing makes on the dyno in here. All right, so looking over this data, I mean, it looks clean. Needed just a touch of fuel, like 2%. But yeah, it didn't make shit for power. So obviously, I mean, we're only making 9.5 pounds or so. And we're low on timing for that boost level, but we're also only at 52.9% alcohol. So I have this set up to where the Flex Fuel Multi, so I'll go under, it's under Spark Advance Flex Fuel Multi. I actually haven't had this truck on 50% alcohol. I've either had it on 93 or straight E85. I've never had it in between. So I only had it at a 0.5 multiplier. So realistically, we could actually probably have this set up to like a 0.8 multiplier. So I'm gonna change that. And that's all I'm gonna change. So it should pick up a little bit of timing. So we're gonna load this in and then we'll do another rip. And then, but I have a feeling that this truck's probably just gonna sit on the dyno over the weekend, and we may end up swapping that other pulley back on. I mean, I'm gonna ask him and confirm that it's only making 9.5 pounds on the street, because last I heard this thing had made up like 16 pounds. So we'll have to verify that. But I mean, while we're on 9.5, I might as well dial this in a little bit more. So I'm gonna load this in and then we'll do another rip. And so just for reference, you guys can see, this is the pull we just did. Now, obviously you see the wheel spin, but this, I mean, the truck was hooked up right here. So this is what we just did. This is what it did with the old pulley combination before. And you can see it spun even on that pull as well. But once it hooked, I mean, it was absolutely freaking ripping before. So it's kind of discouraging, but again, I think this was like, I think I remember like 12 pounds or maybe 13 pounds. I mean, this was, we had fully stretched out the fuel system to the point where I think I was at like 6.3 milliseconds on this pull. So this is only 4.8 milliseconds. So obviously even the fuel flow confirms the drop in power. All right, so the only change I made is what you saw, just that flex fuel multiplier. Truck may hook up on this pull which would be nice. This thing comes to life with more boost, which I mean, basically everything does, but for whatever reason, this Whipple gets real happy with that extra 3 or 4 pounds, as you guys saw. Again, we're in 4th gear, gonna lock the converter. Manifold air temp looks good, coolant temp looks good. Let's do a pull. What happened there? Truck's acting like it doesn't want to slow down. It cut out randomly. 6450, so that's kind of weird, but we'll dig into it more. Let's get out and see what it made. All right, so it did pick up power, 614 horsepower, 530 torque, but obviously you guys saw, you know, the truck cut out like 400 RPM early. So this thing was still ripping. It probably would have made 635 or 640 on that pull. So let's go ahead and look at the data and see if we can figure out what the hell just happened. I honestly don't know what happened. All right, so I lost audio right here, but I honestly have no idea what happened. Or I had honestly no idea what had happened. So anyways, as I'm looking through this data log, I'm trying to figure out if I can find anything that is causing the truck to just randomly cut out like it did. So I'm gonna check through the torque model. I'm gonna look through all the torque sources. I'm going to look at peak torque. I'm looking at injection pulse width. I'm going to look at basically anything and everything. And ultimately what I come to figure out is the rail pressure. So these LT4 pumps have a max pressure cap of 27.5 megapascal. And so apparently I was commanding up to 26, and the PID for the high pressure pump had overshot and hit the 27.5 megapascal to limit, I should say. And basically when it hit that, it lost it. It went into a limp mode. So right now I'm pulling up, I'm going to show you how to check the high pressure pump max limit. So right there is the 27.5 megapascal limit. And so you'll see where we cross it right there at a little over 6,400. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to adjust it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn rail pressure down 1 megapascal. After turning it down 1 megapascal, anything else, I didn't modify the PID system. I didn't do anything else. But after I did that, the truck did not go into limp mode again. So anyways, I wish I would have had the audio for this. One of the microphones, I've got a DJI mic, and apparently one of them fails randomly, and when it does, it gets this real nasty scratchy sound. So anyway, so right now what I'm showing you on here is showing you how to adjust the rail pressure, which I've shown you in other videos, but right here I'm going to reduce it 1 megapascal is what I'm talking about. So anyways, now that we know that, I'm going to test, like once the video changes, I end up, we go back on the dyno and we test, and it did successfully get the limp mode or cutout to disappear. All right, so hopefully this is the last time or the last pull, at least tonight. I'm about ready to go home. Just so y'all are aware too, this is a stock 8L9. I got a little aggressive with the settings. So I mean, this truck shifts pretty firm, but it has survived the most abuse of any 8L90 I've ever seen. All right, let's let it rip. Well, we were solid that time, so I believe that was the fix. I think we just happened to crest just a little bit too much rail pressure. So, all right, let's get out and see what it made. Otherwise, everything else looks perfect. Air fuel is spot on. Timing looks good. Boost being just low, but it is what it is. I'll let it sit on the dyno. If he wants to swap out the pulley, we can. But let's get out and see what it made. Hopefully it picked up more than the 614 or whatever it was. All right, so I guess it's going to be it, 616. So apparently at 9 pounds, it really doesn't give a shit about the added timing. So I will probably pull that back out. I guess it's just gonna sit on the dyno over the weekend and let him decide on if he wants to just leave it like this. Cause I mean, this way, he can run straight E85 and enjoy it. And straight E85 out on the street, say it picks up another half pound or so on the street. I mean, probably in like the 650 range, which on a Dyno Jet, that'd be like 700 to 710. So, I mean, not bad, but we'll let him decide. All right, so I'm gonna end it off here. This truck, like I said, we're just gonna leave it on the dyno, and if he wants to change pulley and me to, you know, dyno it again on Monday, hopefully turn it back up, we can. If he wants to leave it this power level, we can. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. All I'm worried about is the data. You guys saw data looks clean, everything looks good. So it's like 7:30 right now at night. So we're just gonna go ahead on and roll this out, be done. But I will, I didn't put it in this video, but we're gonna talk a little bit more about my plans for this year. I'll probably do another members only video this weekend, and we may discuss it there. And I also may just go ahead on and go live. I've been meaning to do that for a while, but I just haven't. So anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.